This week on Distant Shores, we continue work on a design for a custom aluminium sailboat with KM Yachtbuilders in the Netherlands. In this session, owner Ewa Koi shows us boats they have custom designed for other owners. Join us as we take a look at features of a Bestevaer 49 and two versions of a Bestevaer 45.
We're Cheryl and Paul Shard, hosts of the Distant Shores Sailing Adventure TV series. Recently, we've been cruising aboard our variable draft southerly 480 sailboat in Panama. This is the fourth sailboat we've owned during 31 years of international sailing, and we're about to build our fifth. Join us on the journey. Previously on Distant Shores, we did an online tour of the KM Yachtbuilders factory, then discussed our criteria for our next boat. A monohull sailboat under 50 feet in length that has a pilot house or raised salon you can steer from, and a variable draft ballasted swing keel for performance and exploring. We also discussed our need for comfortable office space for working while cruising, number of cabins and types of berths, number of heads and showers, galley position and layout, cockpit features, and stern configuration. Using this information, today Ewa will show us examples of custom-built Bestevaer yachts that KM Yachtbuilders have constructed with similar features to what we're looking for.
We've included an index below if you want to jump ahead to a boat or features that interest you most.
I'll show you just some examples. And because there's so many, I just show a few. We can later zoom into some of the designs and give you more information.
Great.
This is a 49-foot, the Bestevaer, what is built also custom for a couple. This has an extended deck house. It's relatively low, or pilot house or deck salon, what you want to put in there. Smaller cockpit, because they're always together. Big solar panel, it's like 1 kilowatt.
Oh wow.
To get enough power for being on board, having not a generator, and don't have to run the engine. You see a lot of details what we did on this boat. They want it as sturdy as possible, so I hope you can, I try to zoom in a little bit better. You can see the tracks what we welded on, for instance.
Oh yeah.
So there are no tracks on the boat who are bolted. So those tracks are all welded on the boat. So where there's no bolt, there can also be no leak. And then with loop locks, you put the sheet on the boat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a nice option to be able to do that.
So I don't say you have to do this, but it's just an example. What we did, we made here like custom hatches. They didn't want to have windows because they were afraid they would break. Oh. So we made like almost like commercial hatches for them, who are extremely strong and insulated. So the negative point is you have very little light in the boat.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just an example. If somebody wants it, we can build this. Bollards are integrated in the boat. Bollards are welded in.
That looks like an extremely solidly built boat.
Yeah, the bollards are so strong you can tow up a line of boats, or you could even hoist the boat on it. I mean, they're so well integrated in the boat, so that's not the point. Also the handholds and the fair leads. We try to make it as integral as possible of the total boat, and not add on little bits and pieces what can break off or be a leakage in the future.
Right.
So this boat also had, like you see, those windows have little points, little dots. Those are thread ends, inserts where you can put a plate on top of it. So if it would be terrible weather or you leave the boat somewhere, it has to be like almost armored free. You can put like metal plates on them and screw them in, and that would be in case of a break of window, would help you in the transatlantic.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's a great feature.
So there's some ideas, depending how strong do you want the boat, we can help you provision that.
I think for us we might want shutters like that over very big windows. But almost more important, at least sitting here in Panama, would be to be able to put a screen over top of the outside of the windows to reduce heat loading in the boat. I think because the windows.
Yeah, well, that could also be. Yeah. We have done that also. Yeah.
You might be able to do the same thing with both of those. With those same points, you could have a pull-out screen that snaps in place over that, or allows you to put storm shutters on for that ultimate.
Yeah, that's no problem. Like a mesh screen, or it's like an head, like from a cap. What we have done.
Oh,
You can see, but it takes the sun away.
that's interesting.
Yeah. Well, that is a big solar panel.
Yes,
A kilowatt is
very
great.
Big solar panel. Yeah.
I think I might be on the same wavelength in that sort of philosophy, because we've had generators on 2 boats, and with this boat we have a system called Integrel, which has a generator, basically the power of a generator that takes a pull off the front of the main engine, so we don't have to maintain a separate generator motor. And in this case, that's in an inaccessible area, which is just very hard to get at. So I think it was nice to not have to have another engine to maintain. And if you need a substantial solar though to provide
Wow, that's
power.
great. Look at the size.
Well, that is a big solar panel.
Yeah.
No, I wanted to say yes to generate this power, to have a dedicated or a big alternator, DC or AC. We can do various items depending a little bit on the load balance what we make for the clients. Because what we do in the electricity, we make a load balance and see what electricity is used in 24 hours on anchor, on sailing, on docking, and see what do you need. And we sometimes even do it winter time and summertime, depending on what the scheme of the clients are. And then we find out how much generator hour do you need, or is a solar panel enough or not, or a water generator. So in that perspective, we can see what is needed. But that's all part of the process. If you build a boat, it's not always an initial design. It's depending a little bit what are the criteria from the owners, what is the most priority to find out how we can build a boat together, because we cannot do everything in this initial design. We do the most criteria and then we move to the next phase, and that's really depending on where you feel secure with.
Yeah,
Right.
that
No,
sounds
that
like a
makes
good
sense.
process.
Yeah.
Sure, what was your comment on
Yeah.
So-
Sorry to interrupt. I just had a question about the solar arch. Does that also incorporate davits? Does the dinghy hang up on that, or do they store their dinghy?
Yes, this if I go back to this picture, here you can see, I'll zoom into it, there are loop blocks under, like 3 or 4 of them, and that can be used for recovery, but also can be used to pull up a dinghy like completely under this solar panel, so it's out of your way and it's like protected by the solar panels, and you can look underneath them. Now, if you want to see backwards, if you're sitting
I
in a
see.
cockpit,
That's a good
you can.
idea.
Yeah,
It could
so it's
come
right
high.
up high.
So the dinghy would come all the way up, and then you'd see back underneath. Would be a nice feature.
Oh.
Yeah.
Similarly for getting off in the Mediterranean.
Yeah, for med mooring, you could climb under it. Oh, I like that. I'd like one of those, please.
Tick.
Yeah.
So for island hopping, that's actually good enough. For long route sailing, I would say the dinghy should be stored away. Otherwise, it's getting too in the way for your real vision. But for island hopping, like from day to day use of your dinghy, this is a good spot. Or this could be a solution.
Right.
That's one of our conflicted items. I think we've always had the same dinghy basically for 30 years, which is a 10-foot 2 inflatable. Some of them with a rigid bottom, and it's been hard to store them, and especially if we've always stored it on the foredeck.
Yeah.
But we want to have a pilot house and sea up, so we're looking for other solutions for the ultimate dinghy solution. I think
Yeah.
it's been one of our hardest areas to try to say what we want. I imagine these guys want to fold the dinghy entirely and put it in a locker. is a common European solution.
Yeah, what we could try to do in your design, what we also did like in the past, we make the stern of the boat a little wider, and depending on the size of the boat, if it's fittable, and to put the dinghy like in the scoop. So that could be a solution, but because then you can have like a semi-rigid dinghy, what makes rowing a lot better than those inflatable dinghies, because they're very difficult to row. But that's something we could find out if that fits, yes or no.
Right.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
That might be the answer, because we can't store this one on deck if we're going to have a pilot house, unless
Yeah.
there's an indent in the deck like the big oysters do to store their boat down in the deck.
Yeah. I'll show you first. So we had the deck house from outside. This is like this couple wanted a deck house with 2 benches on each side, symmetrical. Have a big owner salon in the bow with a toilet and a shower separate. So starboard is the shower and port is the toilet. And the salon and a big, very big galley. The galley is extremely big on the port side. Yeah, the galley is on the bottom. Yeah. Then they have a technical room on starboard side, a walk-in technical room, and a guest cabin on port side.
So there's just the one head that they would share?
Yeah, this boat has
Yes,
only one
they
head.
have one head because they have very rarely guests on board.
That's a raised saloon, so
It's
you've
like-
raised a saloon table up.
Yes, this is, see, a pilot house or a raised saloon is very close to each other, depending, there's not a lot of difference in my opinion. So what we could do is like this, and if we call this a raised saloon, that's good. We try to do everything in one area. So we have your salon, you have your galley on the other side, but it's not as protected as you want it, I think, and here is still quite some traffic.
Well, if
Then
you're
you have
standing
your
at
step.
if you're standing at the stove, no one's. I mean, they're going
There's
by
a walkway
you, but
behind your back.
Yeah, it
That's
looks.
not a
Yes,
problem.
yes, yeah,
And
exactly.
that's actually nice for watch keeping too, to have the galley right there.
Galley near the cockpit
Hadn't-
is safer for me at sea. I don't have to walk so far to a bouncy galley. I won't be.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
I
that's a neat
never
idea.
thought of that. But
Is that the same boat? Is this boat the same one you showed a second ago?
No,
where you-
yeah. No, this would fit in the same boat. We have to do some modifications. It's a little bit a different deck house, but it would fit more or less. Maybe you have the deck house a little bit wider, but that's not a new boat or a new hull design, but different
Right.
superstructure.
I was just going to say that this is a big change, I think, with an aluminium boat. For instance, when you build a fiberglass boat, you can make a lot of changes to equipment that you bolt on, but you really can't move any bulkheads, and you certainly can't change the shape of the deck house without building a $100,000 mold to do it with. And here you could change the shape of the deck house in aluminum without any trouble.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the first benefit that it's more rigid and more stable and strong. The other one, that environmental, I think today aluminium is better for eco over 100 years than fiberglass, polyester or carbon. The other one, it's much more flexible during the building period, because we don't mind welding some other items on, because it's not molded. It's all, of course, it's pre-cutted and it's pre-defined, but we're very flexible to make it a little longer or shorter.
Yeah, that's an
Right.
amazing difference.
Yeah, that's quite an advantage.
Yeah, because I don't think I've seen pictures of this version of. I've looked around on your website a lot. It's for anyone watching here today that definitely you've got some beautiful pictures that are well worth looking around your website at some of the old boats you built.
So I'll walk you a little bit through, but it's a little common sense. I think here are 2 steps down, and then you're in the galley area. In the galley you can stand and look outside. So there's 1 step up, or almost 1.5 step up, and then you're sitting here and you're looking outside. Because between sitting and standing and both times looking outside is you need very large windows, like about 60 centimeters high, because the difference between sitting and standing is about 60 centimeters. Or you need some steps in your boat.
Yeah.
So on the smaller boats, we see always steps to accomplish that. So you need 2 steps down to see outside when you're cooking and to see outside.
When you're sitting in your salon
Nice.
area.
Then you have your nav station on your port side, where you can have a good view because you're very close to the window.
Yeah.
And the closer you to the window, the better your angle is to look every direction. So the more aft you're sitting, or the further you're sitting away from a window, the worse your visibility is.
Yes.
And of course, nobody can sit in front of you. That's also
Yes.
benefit.
Right, yeah.
Like a bus driver.
And there's
Yeah.
just you just have a step to climb up into that because you're at the lower floor
Yes,
level in the galley floor. and then you step-
Exactly. You're sitting here at the same level as in your salon.
Okay, so they both have similar views of everything. That's fantastic.
There are similar views on port side, the bench, and on starboard side, the nav station. So then you have 2 steps down, and then you're on the sole of the boat. Let me say it that way.
And I see a nice editing suite there.
Excuse me.
I'm seeing that little sitting room looks like an editing suite to me.
Yeah, I made that for you. That's a
Thank
better seat.
you.
That's
Screening
for
room,
women.
everything.
because
I love
they-
that.
Yeah. So what you see here is this box. That's like where the centerboard is in. And that could be a separation. You also can keep it open. And under here is a bed. I can show you that in another vision. This is like a head, what could be a shower and toilet in one. And this is like a separate shower and toilet. You see the plexiglass door or glass door. And then with an owner cabin. And this is then a big closet. So let's show this from the other side. I think this is the other side.
Yeah, that's a large double.
Ah,
So you see the galley again with the nav seat and the steps. Then you see the guest is a double bed. This is the perfect place to sleep when you're traveling, to be honest. So as an owner cabin, I think it's even better because you're sitting closer to your nav station, you're sitting closer to everything. So that's an example what would work. Another solution, what we did in the same design, we put the bathroom down, but I did like that less. So you have the raised saloon or pilot house. You have here the nav station with like a big storage box or desk. What you can think of. Could also be a settee. And then the galley is down, so it's a little bit deeper. Some people say we want to stay as down as possible, and I thought you want to be as much as possible in that area where you can look like 360 degrees around.
I don't think
So
you don't
you
have
don't-
real views out of this galley. You don't mind the views so long as you
Yeah.
you prefer being a little aft, but this is still after the mast. Where's the mast again? Just in front of the keel box?
Mast is here. This pillar where my arrow is. Do you see it?
oh, I see it now. Oh,
I
yeah,
don't see it.
it's right here.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
The con side is that you have one head with a separate shower because no, it's not so efficient layout this. Because if you do the galley here, this is the space for a second for the second head, but if you do your galley here, this is gone because that's something what pro and a con. So I will share this document as well with you.
So what side? Which boat is this again?
The
Oh, it's the
best.
45.
This is a 45, but it does fit better in a 49, I think, because what the disadvantage if you do this in a this is the 40. This forepeak is very nice for storage of some sails and wet stuff. if you do the 45 with that maximized interior, the bulkhead will be so much forward, so there's almost no space in the bow anymore for storage.
Right.
So it's get a little bit overfilled, to my opinion, if you're traveling with the boat and having a bike with you and maybe a surfboard or some other toys. There's almost no space to store these big items. Then you have to put it almost in your guest cabin or something like that, and that's what I do not like. I always say the items between the watertight bulkheads are dry, and you should not have wet stuff in there like sails or bikes or other gear.
Yeah, we agree.
It's a good idea. I think our boat is good in that it has a lot of accommodation space, but then it's at the lack of some of the storage that these arrangements have favored storage for long-term people,
Right.
rather than ours is sort of maximizing interior space.
Right.
So is that the extended pilot that you're saying?
Yeah, this is about the size of the pilot house, what you need. We have drawn them, we have also made them as the Bestevaer style, but a little bit more squarish, and then it looks like more like this. No, that's a little bit depending on what styling. This goes closer to the boats what we do with the Bestevaers. Zoom a little bit in. This is like with the big deck house, and this is like with the more sporty, I don't know how you say it, different styling, but that's all. That's open to preference of an owner. Top side. Here you see where we can show the difference between the deck house and a normal pilot house. You see the red line is the enlarged one.
Right.
Oh, I see. So the windows have moved forward by 0.5 meter or so.
Exactly, yeah. So, but it's also wider. You see also to the width. The red one is stopping here, so it's 12 something centimeters wider on each side, and it's like 60 centimeters or a meter longer forward, and that accommodates that raised salon or pilot house.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, that's very flexible. The aluminium construction and modern design tools
Yeah.
to be able
Yeah.
to sort of just squeeze and make something change that totally can't be changed on a fiberglass boat at all until you make an entire new deck, which is massively expensive. So this is mainly design, because once the main design is finalized, you're redoing some of the cutting files and redoing and then the pieces all pop out and the boat changes shape without need for a new mold at all. That's incredible.
Yeah, that's depending a little bit on budget of owners, of they want to do they want to how far they want to change and what they want to go. I mean, for us, we don't mind building a complete new design, but a complete new design from scratch, I think for one boat is like 50,000-60,000 euro at least for the designer, and then we have to build all our cutting files again. So you're ending up with a complete new boat, everything new. You're ending up quickly like 150,000 euro only for design work, where you don't buy any boat or stuff for. It's only like the engineering stuff.
Right.
And if you say, well, it's not worth me, leave the hull as it is and change some bits and pieces, then an existing hull is always very useful.
Right. It's win-win for both sides.
Yep.
Yeah, if it can be accomplished in that,
Yeah.
those parameters. I mean, as the stern is narrower than most modern boats too, have you ever done any where you change the hull shape itself for the?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
That I see how much the changes on that. It's quite substantial.
Yes, yeah.
Especially by sliding the pilot house forward.
Yeah, the wider stern was something we enjoyed. Our last boat was 49 feet, or a previous boat, and this is 48. But because the stern is wider, it's just given us a bit more volume, and the galley location that I really like. So, just wondering if it was possible.
Well, and it also might be possible or easier to go to a 52 hull and
Right.
modify that one, I don't know that we're not absolutely set that it has to be absolutely no more than 49.
Yeah.
It's something we like when we visit smaller harbors, but I think again going up to 51 or 52, it crosses that threshold in Europe where they say, "Oh, you're more than 15 meters now."
Right. There's different berth
but it isn't a
rates.
deal breaker. I think if we could fit everything in the boat, everything all together, and it would become a 52. I don't think it's.
Yeah, that's not a deal breaker.
It's not the.
Yeah, that's something. Yeah, you. I also would say what you try to do is build a boat as small as we can always, not to say, well, make it a little longer. No, I mean, I think the smaller the better. But I mean, if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. So, and then sometimes it grows a little bit, and that's for us in initial design. We don't say, client, you have to choose now before 45 or 49 or 53. Sometimes the boat grows from 45 to 53, but sometimes it goes from 53 to also to 49. I mean, be flexible there as well, because the aim is to get the perfect boat for the couple or the family. And our goal is to build a boat together, and that's the aim, and that's the only one. So it doesn't matter if you shift from one to the other boat, because we have to find out what is the best suitable solution.
Mm-hmm.
And as you say, if we have to build a totally new hull in order to fit everything into 49, that will cost perhaps as much or more even than shifting to a 53 hull, or 50. Is it a 53 you make? And not having to do a custom boat.
Right, yeah.
So it could actually be less expensive.
Yeah.
So.
See, on the other hand, if you're thinking we could maybe for 3 other couples in the future, they would maybe sell this boat again, and we think it's going to be a success. Sometimes it's better investing now a little bit more and thinking there will be 2 other boats later. Then it comes back on the long run. So that's always a good question. What is the route? What we're going to make?
Tune in next time when we examine the features of a Stadship 56 and a Bestevaer 53 and start finalizing the design. Do we go bigger?
Learn more and talk to us in person at the United States Sailboat Show in Annapolis in October. Details and contact information on the Distant Shores website.
Thanks for watching. Your views, likes, comments, and shares help us a lot. If you'd like more in-depth information and consultation, we invite you to check out the Distant Shores Cruising Club. Membership includes early access to videos, member-only Q&As, live chats, meetups, sailing opportunities, and many other benefits to help you prepare for your own adventure. Thanks again for your support. See you on the water!